the broken body in the snow. The wind howled like a monster across the frozen valley. Snow covered everything, rocks, wreckage, even bodies. The battlefield was silent now, except for the storm. Raylan, a human scout, walked slowly through the snow. His boots sank deep with every step. His visor showed only white. He was alone, searching for any life signs. His team had left an hour ago, but he had stayed behind. Something didn't feel right. Suddenly his scanner beeped. Unknown life form. Weak signal. 30 meters east. He stopped. In this frozen wasteland, nothing should be alive. Raylan turned and moved quickly. Snow blew hard against his face. He reached the location and looked down. His heart froze. A small body lay half buried in the snow. It was an alien girl. Her skin was light purple, now pale from the cold. She had no legs, only bloody stumps wrapped in torn cloth. Her eyes were open but barely moving. She looked at Raylan with fear. She was still alive. Raylan knelt beside her. "Can you hear me?" She didn't speak, but her fingers twitched. He touched her shoulder gently. Her skin was ice cold. "Don't move. I'm here to help." She closed her eyes. Maybe she didn't believe him. Maybe she thought he would finish her off. Raylan opened his bag and took out the emergency thermal blanket. Soldiers called it fire skin because it gave instant heat. He wrapped it around her body carefully. The girl shivered but didn't fight. "You're going to be all right," he whispered. He tapped his comm. "Base, this is Scout Raylan. I found a survivor. Alien female injured badly. She needs medevac now." Static. He tried again. Nothing. Raylan looked up at the dark clouds. The storm was blocking signals. He looked back at her. She was losing consciousness. He had a choice. Wait and hope the signal came back, or carry her himself. He sighed and shook his head. "Looks like I'm carrying you." He secured his pack, then gently lifted her into his arms. She was light, almost too light. He could feel how weak she was. Her head rested against his chest and he could feel her shallow breaths. He started walking. The snow was deep. The wind hit his face like knives. Every step was hard. But Raylan kept going. He looked down at her. She wasn't just wounded. She was scared. She probably thought he was the enemy. But he wasn't a soldier anymore. He had seen too much pain, too much death. He didn't want to fight. He just wanted to help. After an hour, he reached a small rock formation. It gave some shelter from the wind. He set her down carefully, then started a heat capsule. A soft glow filled the small space. The temperature rose slightly. He checked her pulse. Still there, but weak. He took out his own canteen and touched it to her lips. "Drink." She opened her eyes just a little. Her lips trembled, but she took a few sips. "That's it." "Good girl," he said softly. She looked at him, confused, maybe even grateful. "I'm Raylan," he said. "What's your name?" Her lips moved, barely a whisper. "Zaya." "Zaya," he repeated. "Pretty name." She stared at him, blinking slowly. "Why? Help. Me?" Raylan looked into the firelight. "Because nobody else would." The wind roared outside. The ice cracked in the distance. But inside the shelter, there was a small warmth between them. Zaya closed her eyes again, this time not from fear, but from trust. Raylan looked at her and whispered, "Hang on, Zaya. I'm not leaving you here." He tightened the blanket around her, checked his weapon, and looked out into the storm. There were still miles to go. But now, he had a mission. The storm got worse. Snow came down harder, like sharp pieces of glass from the sky. Raylan's body shook with cold, but he didn't stop. He held Zaya tightly against his chest, her small frame wrapped in the glowing thermal blanket. She was barely breathing. Every few steps he slipped on ice. His arms burned. His legs felt like iron. But he kept moving forward, because he had made a promise. "Hang on, Zaya. I won't let you die." Then the wind screamed louder. No, not wind. It was a howl. Raylan stopped. From the white fog ahead, dark shapes moved. 3 long-legged beasts, like wolves but taller than a man, crawled out of the snowstorm. Their eyes glowed red. Their fur was frozen in patches, and they were hungry. Raylan's grip on Zaya tightened. He whispered, "Don't wake up. Don't look." He knelt slowly, laying her gently under a bent, ice-covered tree. He wrapped the blanket tighter around her, like wrapping her in living fire. It shimmered orange and red, and she groaned weakly in response. Then he turned. The beasts growled, teeth dripping with frost. Raylan didn't run. Instead, he pulled out a small flare from his belt and snapped it open. A burst of bright red light shot into the air, lighting up the area around him. The beast paused, then charged. Raylan roared and threw the flare at the closest one. The heat hit it like a slap. It yelped and rolled back. The second lunged, but Raylan swung his shock baton hard, striking it in the jaw. The creature crashed into the snow. The third jumped right at his face, but suddenly froze in midair. Raylan blinked. The creature was shaking. Something invisible was holding it, and then it dropped, whimpering. Raylan turned toward Zaya. Her eyes were open, glowing faintly. She wasn't just watching. She was protecting him, even with no legs, even near death. Something inside her had responded. Raylan returned quickly to her side. "You're awake." Zaya stared at him with strange light in her eyes. "You burn like a sun." He smiled. "No, that's just the blanket." But Zaya shook her head slowly. "Not the fire skin. You." She reached out with her thin fingers and touched his chest. Raylan felt a pulse go through him, warmth, not from the blanket. Something deeper. Then her hand fell. She passed out again. Raylan looked around. The beasts were gone, scared off or knocked out. He had to keep moving. He lifted her once more. The fire skin crackled around her, glowing bright in the darkness. He walked through the storm again, but now he felt something strange inside. As if Zaya had given him a piece of herself. Just enough to keep going. Hours passed. The sky began to turn a dark blue. At last, Raylan saw what he had hoped for, an old emergency station buried in snow. It was dead, but the backup reactor might still work. He kicked the door. It jammed. He kicked again. It opened with a rusty groan. Inside it was dark, silent, but dry. Raylan carried Zaya in and laid her on the metal floor. He found the power panel and punched the startup sequence, nothing. Then a light flickered on, one small light, enough to see, enough to breathe. He turned to Zaya. Her face was peaceful now. Her wound still raw, but her body had stopped shaking. Raylan sat beside her, rubbing warmth back into his hands. He looked at her again and whispered, "What are you, Zaya?" She was more than just a broken alien girl, and something told Raylan she was about to change everything. The small station creaked in the wind. Raylan sat near the broken heater, holding a half-dead power rod in his hand. He had managed to get one light working, but the heat was barely enough to keep them alive. Zaya lay still on a thin mat. Her body was wrapped in the glowing fire skin. Her breath came slow. Her skin was pale blue now, not from blood but from something deeper. Something alien. Raylan watched her. She didn't look like a soldier, or a killer. She looked like someone who had been thrown away by the world. And yet she had stopped, a charging beast with just a look. Raylan didn't understand it, but he had a feeling this was not just another rescue mission. He moved quietly and opened a small compartment in the wall. Inside was an old supply kit, 2 ration bars, 1 small water bottle, and a damaged med pod. He cursed under his breath. Better than nothing. He brought the med pod to Zaya and pressed it gently to her side. It hissed. A thin mist covered her wounds. The bleeding slowed, but her eyes didn't open. Outside, the storm screamed louder. Raylan leaned back and closed his eyes for a moment. Then, he heard it. A thump, not from outside, from beneath them. Raylan opened his eyes. Another thump, louder. He looked at the floor. The sound was coming from below the station. He stood and grabbed his weapon. The scanner on his wrist flashed red. Subsurface movement detected. No, 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 he whispered. Not now. The floor cracked. A long black claw burst through the corner tile. Raylan jumped back. The claw twisted, tore through metal, and vanished. Then silence. Raylan didn't move. A low growl echoed from under the floor. Something was digging, something alive. Raylan rushed to Zaya. Wake up. Zaya, wake up. She didn't respond. He shook her shoulder. Her head rolled slightly. She groaned, but she wasn't strong enough to stand, or fight, or run. The claw came again, this time with more force. The entire floor split down the middle. Raylan picked Zaya up and moved to the back wall. He kicked open a maintenance shaft and slid them both inside. Just as the floor collapsed, a monster emerged. It was long, insect-like, covered in black armor. Its head scraped the ceiling. Yellow slime dripped from its jaws. Its eyes were blind, but it could smell. Raylan held his breath. The beast sniffed the air. It moved slowly toward the blanket where Zaya had just been lying. Raylan looked down the shaft. There was only one path. Downward. Into the tunnels below the station. Into the dark. He whispered, I hope you like tight spaces. He slid down. The tunnel, holding Zaya close. Above, the creature shrieked. The tunnel was narrow and full of wires. Dust choked the air. Raylan moved carefully, one hand holding Zaya, the other gripping the metal walls. Sparks flew from a broken pipe. Something hissed behind him. He didn't stop. They reached a lower chamber. It was old, unused, full of shadows. Raylan set Zaya down and closed the hatch behind them. He jammed it with a steel rod. His heart pounded. His breath was heavy. But they were alive, Zaya moaned. Her eyes opened. Barely. Fire. Again. Raylan looked around. No heater, no power cells, only him. He unzipped his jacket and wrapped himself around her. His body heat was all he could give. She whispered, You are burning. He chuckled. No, just a warm-blooded idiot. She looked into his eyes, and for the first time, she smiled. It was small, weak, but real. Raylan smiled back. Let's survive this night. Then you can tell me why those things are chasing you. Outside, the creature roared again, but inside in the dark, two souls burned like fire against the cold. Raylan opened his eyes to a strange sound. Drip, drip, drip. Water? He looked up. The ceiling of the tunnel chamber was melting. The ice above them was clear now, and through it, something moved. A large shadow swam just under the surface of the frozen layer. Its shape shifted, long, wide, and full of jagged fins. Raylan's blood ran cold. He wasn't alone down here. Zaya still lay beside him, wrapped in the fire skin. Her breath was shallow, and her skin had started to glow with a soft golden pulse, like something inside her was waking up. He checked the hatch behind them, still sealed. The creature from earlier hadn't broken through yet. But now, something worse was above them. The shadow passed again, slower this time. Zaya stirred. Her voice was a whisper. It followed me. Raylan leaned close. What is it? Her eyes opened weakly. Burrows are pent. It hunts for royal blood. Raylan blinked. You? Royal blood. She closed her eyes. I wasn't always broken. Before he could ask more, a loud crack rang out, A sharp line split across the ice above. Raylan stood and backed away with Zaya in his arms. Then, boom! The ice shattered. The creature dropped through like a cannonball, huge, black, and sleek. It had dozens of small legs and a glowing blue mouth full of teeth that never ended. The burrow serpent had found them. Raylan grabbed a broken pipe from the wall. It wasn't a real weapon, but it would have to do. "Stay back," he shouted, placing himself between Zaya and the monster. The serpent roared, then everything changed. Zaya sat up. Her body glowed golden white. Her hair floated as if touched by invisible wind. Her eyes opened, fully, and they were pure light. Raylan stared in shock. Zaya raised her hand. The serpent froze mid-attack. It hovered in the air, mouth open, inches from Raylan. Zaya whispered something in her native language. A symbol glowed on her forehead. Then, boom, a pulse of energy blasted from her palm. The serpent screamed as it was thrown back into the ceiling. It hit the ice above and shattered it again, this time disappearing into the frozen lake above. Silence followed. Only steam and broken chunks of ice filled the chamber. Raylan turned. Zaya's light faded. She collapsed in his arms. He held her, stunned. You saved me." She opened her mouth but said nothing. She had passed out again. Raylan lowered her gently, trying to understand what had just happened. Zaya had royal blood. She had powers. She was being hunted, not just by wild creatures but by ancient beasts bred to kill her kind, and she had just saved both their lives. He checked his wrist scanner. Power levels, low. Oxygen, low. Heat, critical. But something new showed up. Beacon detected 3 kilometers south, a rescue beacon. Raylan smiled for the first time in hours. "I got you, Zaya. We're getting out of here." He picked her up again. She was light, warm, and peaceful now. Above them, the frozen ceiling had cracked wide open, letting in pale starlight. Raylan looked up at the stars. They were still far from safety, but they had one thing the enemy never expected. The night sky above the cracked ice tunnel was full of stars. Raylan climbed out slowly, carrying Zaya close to his chest. Her pulse was steady, but she hadn't woken again. Her glowing skin had faded, but something inside her still shimmered, like a sleeping flame. The snow was quiet now, too quiet. Raylan checked his scanner. The beacon signal was getting stronger. Just 3 kilometers south. He had to move fast, but as he took his first step, he heard a voice. Not a voice through his ears, a voice in his mind. "Don't take her, human. She belongs to the void." Raylan stopped, frozen. He turned, but no one was there, only snow and shadows. Then suddenly the wind lifted the snow around him into a spiral. In the center of it, something appeared, a tall figure in black robes with no face, only a smooth mask of shining metal. Raylan raised his weapon. "Who are you?" The figure didn't move. It spoke again, directly into his thoughts. "The child is not yours to carry. She is bound to the ancient blood. Let her die in peace." Zaya stirred in Raylan's arms. He held her tighter. "She's not dying today." The figure's mask cracked open. A glowing mouth, full of sharp white light, began to form. Raylan stepped back. "Get out of my way." But the figure moved without, walking, sliding over the snow like smoke. Raylan fired his shock pistol. The shot passed through it like fog. "You will burn for touching the sacred air." Suddenly, Zaya's eyes shot open, but they were different now. No longer gold. They were white-blue, like the heart of a star. She reached out with one hand and placed it on Raylan's chest and whispered, "Don't be afraid." Then everything exploded. Not fire, not lightning, but memory. Raylan's vision blurred. He wasn't in the snow anymore. He stood in a vast hall of light. Alien symbols floated in the air. Thousands of beings in white armor bowed before a throne, and on that throne sat a small child with glowing eyes. It was Zaya, but not broken, not legless, not weak. She was powerful, royal, chosen. Raylan looked around. Behind the throne, the robed figure stood. Its mask was untouched. Zaya stood up. She was older now. She looked at him. "You need to understand," she said. "I wasn't supposed to survive. They tried to end the line by cutting me down." Raylan reached for her. "I don't care who you were. I care who you are now." Suddenly, he was back in the snow. Zaya collapsed again. The figure screamed, its body turning to dust in the wind. Whatever power had summoned it, Zaya had shattered. Raylan caught her before she hit the ground. She was breathing, barely. He knelt, trembling. "You shared that memory with me." She nodded weakly. "You deserve to know." He looked at her with new eyes. Zaya wasn't just someone to save. She was someone worth following. The snow around them began to fall gently again, no longer sharp, no longer painful. And then from the distance, a ship's lights appeared. The beacon had worked. Rescue had come. But Raylan knew now. The real danger wasn't over, because someone had tried to erase Zaya from history. And now, she was awake. The rescue ship landed in silence. Its black steel surface shimmered under the twin moons. 2 med drones floated down and scanned the area. Raylan waved, his body aching from cold and exhaustion. He still held Zaya close, her fire skin dim but glowing gently like a sleeping ember. The hatch opened. A team of human medics rushed out. But before Raylan could call for help, LBIDM voice rang through the air, a deep, cruel voice. "Return the girl, she is mine." Raylan spun around. A tall alien figure stood behind them, half machine, half flesh. His armor was dark and cracked, etched with glowing runes. One eye was robotic, the other burned orange like a dying sun. Zaya stirred weakly. Her body trembled. Her voice cracked. "No, not him. Anyone but him." Raylan's blood turned cold. "Who is he?" She whispered one word. "Uncle." The armored figure raised a clawed hand. "I gave you a chance to vanish quietly," he said, "but you let a human carry you back to the light. Foolish." Raylan stepped in front of Zaya. "You'll have to kill me to get to her." The alien laughed. Gladly, he raised his arm, and a shockwave blasted outward. The medics were thrown back. Raylan held his ground, planting his feet. But the ground cracked beneath them. The alien was not just strong. He controlled gravity around him. Raylan couldn't breathe. Zaya, barely awake, whispered, "Don't fight him. He was trained to kill royal blood." Raylan growled, "Good. I'm not royalty." With one last burst of energy, he threw a heat grenade toward the enemy. It exploded in flame. The alien vanished into smoke. Raylan scooped Zaya up again and sprinted toward the ship. Blaster fire rained from the sky. Small drone ships, dark and silent, appeared overhead, sent by her uncle to take her back, dead or alive. Inside the rescue ship, alarms went off. The pilot shouted, "They followed the beacon. It was a trap." Raylan jumped aboard just in time. The hatch closed behind him. Zaya opened her eyes. "I put you in danger," she said weakly. Raylan looked down at her. "No. You gave me a reason to fight again." Outside, the battle began. Laser fire lit up the snowfield. The rescue ship lifted off, spinning to avoid the incoming drones. Raylan held Zaya's hand as the cabin shook violently. Suddenly, her body began to glow again. The pilot screamed, "What's happening?" Raylan didn't answer. Zaya opened her eyes wide, and the royal crest on her forehead lit up, burning with white-blue light. "Stop the ship," she said softly. The pilot hesitated. "What?" "Stop it. Open the hatch." Raylan blinked. "You're too weak. What are you doing?" She looked at him. "I'm not weak anymore." The pilot stopped the ship in the air. The hatch opened. Zaya floated forward, without legs, without help. The air shimmered around her. She spoke into the wind. "You want the air? Come and face me." Below, the enemy's ship landed. Her uncle stepped out. He looked up. Zaya hovered in the sky like a star reborn. He snarled, "You're nothing without your bloodline. Zaya replied calmly. Then it's a good thing. I found a reason to live. And with that, she raised both hands. The sky cracked. A blast of light came down like lightning. The enemy drones were shredded in a blink. His warship caught fire. Her uncle screamed, then vanished in the flames. Raylan could only watch in silence. Zaya drifted gently back into the ship, her body dim again, barely conscious. He caught her. She smiled faintly. I didn't want to run anymore. Raylan whispered, You're safe now. But deep down, he knew. The galaxy had just seen her power, and it would never forget her again. The rescue ship soared through the clouds. Raylan sat in the medical bay holding Zaya's hand. Her body lay still, floating slightly above the healing bed. Energy lines pulsed through her veins. Machines blinked and hummed all around, but nothing was louder than the silence between her breaths. She had saved him, saved everyone. But now she was slipping away. The medic drone whispered, Her body is recovering, but her spirit is fractured. Raylan frowned. What does that mean? Drone replied, She used ancient power, it burns the mind. If she doesn't find something real to hold on to, she won't wake again. He looked at her face. Peaceful. Too peaceful. He leaned close. You asked why I helped you, he whispered. It wasn't duty. It wasn't orders. It was you. He placed something on her chest, a charm, a small silver token, a child's drawing of Earth. His sister made it before she died. Raylan said, This saved me once. Maybe it'll save you now. Suddenly, a flash filled the bay. Zaya's body glowed gold and white. Her eyes shot open, but they were not the same. She floated up, surrounded by a soft halo of light. She looked at him. Her voice was calm, royal. You gave me your fire. Now I give you mine. She touched his forehead. Everything changed. Raylan was no longer inside the ship. He was standing in a new place, a star field made of memory. Zaya walked toward him, now fully whole. Legs of light carried her forward. She smiled. This is the place between life and death, she said. But I don't want to stay here alone. Raylan asked. Why show me this? She looked down. Because I thought I had no reason to return. She reached out. But then I met you. Their hands touched, and the star field exploded in color. Back in the real world, Raylan gasped. Zaya collapsed into his arms, alive, fully awake, her legs still gone. But now soft blue lights formed below her waist, a gift of ancient technology. She floated above the ground, supported by pure energy. He laughed, holding her tight. You did it. You came back. She smiled. Only because you never gave up on me. The ship docked at a human outpost above a quiet moon. Leaders came to meet them. Scientists, peacekeepers, soldiers. But Raylan kept Zaya close. He had carried her through death. Now he would walk beside her into life. One officer stepped forward. We scanned her blood. She is heir to an extinct empire. What do we do with her? Raylan replied, You don't do anything. Zaya stepped beside him. I decide who I am now. The officer nodded slowly. And what do you want? Zaya looked out the window toward the stars. I want to stop running. I want to rebuild. I want to protect those who fall through the cracks. Like I did. Raylan said, Then I'll be there. Every step. Zaya smiled. You already carried me when I couldn't walk. Now I'll carry hope. Later that night, they stood on the deck of the outpost, looking at the stars together. Raylan asked, Do you miss the old life? She shook her head. No, because I finally found something real. He raised a brow. What's that? Zaya took his hand. A home. From a broken body in the snow to a soul reborn in fire. She had no legs, no hope, until a human carried her home.